Chapter 1. The Flickering Light. The rain had been hammering down on New York for what felt like a biblical flood, turning the streets into slick black mirrors that reflected the city's perpetual neon fever dream. It was 3 in the morning, or close enough that it didn't matter, and I was staring at the ceiling of my cramped apartment in the Upper West Side, listening to the water drum against the window like impatient fingers. My knee throbbed, a souvenir from a botched raid 15 years back when I chased a perp down a fire escape and landed wrong on the pavement below. The doc said arthritis, but I knew better. It was the weight of too many ghosts pressing down. Insomnia was my faithful companion these days, more reliable than any partner I'd ever had on the force. I tried everything. Pills that turned my thoughts to sludge, meditation apps that sounded like corporate bullshit, even counting the cracks in the plaster above my bed. Nothing stuck. So I reached for the bottle instead. The whiskey burned going down, a familiar fire that chased away the chill seeping through the walls. I poured another, letting the amber liquid swirl in the glass, catching the faint glow from the street lamp outside. Distant sirens wailing, fading into the rain's steady patter. 30 years on the job, and here I was, Elias Crowe, pushing 50, still chained to this badge like a dog to a post. Retirement papers sat unsigned on my kitchen table, gathering dust. What the hell was I waiting for? A clean exit? A pat on the back from the brass? Or maybe just one more case to prove I wasn't as broken as I felt. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, vibrating like an angry hornet. I glanced at the screen. Dispatch. Of course. The city never slept, and neither did its monsters. Crow, I grunted, my voice gravelly from disuse. Detective, we've got a body in Hell's Kitchen, 10th Avenue, near 45th. Looks bad. Burned, possible homicide. Uniforms are securing the scene. I rubbed my eyes, the whiskey's warmth turning sour in my gut. On my way. The drive downtown was a blur of wipers slashing through sheets of rain, the tires hissing on wet asphalt. Yellow cabs splashed through puddles, their headlights cutting jagged paths in the dark. Hell's Kitchen had cleaned up some since the old days, gentrified bars and theaters rubbing shoulders with the remnants of its gritty past. But at night, under this downpour, it reverted to type, a labyrinth of shadows and secrets, where the air smelled of garbage and desperation. I parked the unmarked sedan behind a cluster of patrol cars, their lights strobing blue and red against the brick facades. Stepping out, the rain hit me like a cold slap, soaking through my trench coat in seconds. My knee throbbed with every step as I limped toward the alley, cordoned off with yellow tape. Uniforms nodded as I ducked under, their faces pale under the hoods of their slickers. The scene was tucked behind a row of dumpsters, the kind of spot where deals went down and lives ended quietly. But this wasn't quiet. The body, or what was left of it, was propped against a chain-link fence, charred, black from head to toe. The smell hit me first, acrid, like overcooked meat mixed with the metallic tang of accelerant. It clawed at my nostrils, stirring memories I'd rather keep buried. The victim had been doused and set alight, flames licking up in this godforsaken weather. How the hell did it burn so thoroughly in the rain? Forensics would tell, but my gut said premeditation. Precision. This wasn't rage. It was a statement.
"Jesus, Elias," came a voice from behind me. Ryan Locke, my partner, sloshing through the puddles with that boundless energy of his. He was 32, transferred in from Buffalo a couple years back, still carrying that upstate optimism like a shield. Tall, athletic, with a jaw that could cut glass and eyes that hadn't yet dulled from the job. He contrasted my worn-out frame like day to my perpetual night. "You look like hell. Get any sleep?" "Enough," I lied, crouching down despite the fire in my knee. The rain pooled around the corpse, diluting the blood and ash into a muddy slurry. Up close, the details emerged. Male, mid-40s, judging by the build. What remained of his clothes suggested a chef's uniform, white jacket singed to rags, embroidered with the name of some trendy spot in Midtown. ID? Wallet was on him, untouched, Ryan said, handing me an evidence-bagged billfold. Name's Marco Rossi. Ran a fusion joint called Inferno's Bite, popular with the Wall Street crowd. No priors, but word is he had ties to the mob. Double life, fronting as a gourmet but dealing coke on the side. Gluttony. The words slithered into my mind unbidden. Rossi's face, or the melted ruin of it, was frozen in a scream, mouth agape as if devouring his last breath. His belly, bloated even in death, spoke of excess. But the burn marks, deliberate, almost ritualistic. I scanned the scene. No accelerant cans, no obvious tools. Clean work. Then I saw it. Wedged under the fence, half buried in the muck, a shard of mirror, cracked but polished, reflecting the flickering lights from the squad cars. I gloved up and picked it out, turning it over. On the back, etched faintly, "For he who devours all shall be devoured by fire." Biblical? No, twisted and familiar. My pulse quickened, a cold sweat breaking despite the rain. It echoed the sins killer from a decade ago, the case that had nearly broken me. That bastard had staged murders around the 7 deadly sins, quoting Dante like some deranged scholar. I'd put him away, but not before he claimed 7 lives, including a kid who got in the way. The media called it my descent into hell. Funny how the press loves a narrative. "Ryan, bag this," I said, handing him the shard, "and get forensics on the inscription. Run it against old cases." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me. "You think it's connected to that old one?" Too soon to say, but my mind was already racing. Copycat? Admirer? Or something worse? Someone who'd been waiting in the shadows, mirroring my past. The rain intensified, drumming harder on the dumpsters. Sound. Thunder rumbling low in the distance, echoing off the buildings. We canvassed the alley, flashing lights into corners where rats scurried from the glare. A homeless guy huddled under a tarp nearby claimed he had seen nothing, just flames bursting up like a bonfire, then gone as quick as they came. "Smelled like barbecue," he muttered, eyes darting. We took his statement, but it was thin. No witnesses in this weather. The city swallowed its secrets whole. Back at the car, I leaned against the hood, lighting a cigarette despite the downpour. The smoke curled up, mingling with the steam rising from the streets. Ryan slid into the passenger seat, but I needed a moment. My headache was building, a vice grip behind my eyes, another gift from the job, or maybe the whiskey. I thought about Rossi, a man of appetites, feeding the city's gluttons while peddling poison in the back. Double life. We all had them, didn't we? Me, the veteran detective playing at redemption, while the bottle whispered promises of oblivion. The mirror shard gnawed at me. Why leave it? A taunt? An invitation? In my line of work, clues weren't accidents. They were breadcrumbs leading deeper into the maze, and this one felt personal, like a shadow stepping into the light. The rain intensified, drumming harder on the dumpsters. Sound. Rain intensifying, a steady roar against the glass. This wasn't just a killer. It was a reflection staring back, forcing me to confront the darkness I'd tried to outrun. And as the night dragged on, I wondered if I was ready for what it would reveal.
Chapter 2. Shadows and the Rain. The rain hadn't let up, a relentless curtain that turned Manhattan into a maze of blurred lights and reflections. It was past 5 in the morning now, the city caught in that gray limbo between night and dawn. I sat in the precinct's bullpen, the hum of fluorescent lights drilling into my skull, matching the ache in my knee. The coffee in my hand was cold, bitter as regret, but I sipped it anyway, staring at the evidence board where Marco Rossi's charred remains stared back in grainy crime scene photos. The mirror shard sat in an evidence bag on my desk, its etched words, "For he who devours all shall be devoured by fire," burning in my mind like a brand. Sound, distant thunder rolling, muffled by the precinct's walls. Ryan was at his desk across from me, typing furiously, his energy undimmed despite the hour. He'd pulled up everything we had on Rossi: bank records, phone logs, a rap sheet from his younger days in Brooklyn before he'd gone legit with his restaurant. Legit my ass. The guy was slinging coke to hedge fund bros while serving them truffle risotto. Gluttony wasn't just his sin, it was his business model. "Got something," Ryan said, spinning his laptop toward me. Rossi's restaurant, Inferno's Bite, was a front. Shell companies tied to the Genovese family, laundering cash through fake catering contracts. Explains why someone torched him. Maybe a deal went south. "Maybe," I muttered, but my gut disagreed. Mob hits were messy, blunt. A bullet to the head, a body in the river. This was theater, the fire, the mirror, the inscription. It wasn't about settling a score. It was a performance, staged for an audience of one, me. I leaned back, the chair creaking under my weight. 30 years on the job had taught me to trust that itch at the back of my neck, the one that said this wasn't random. The call from the unknown number still echoed in my ears. "See yourself in the mirror?" Too close to Harlan Voss's old taunts when he'd send me notes quoting Dante, daring me to catch him before the next body dropped. Voss was still caged upstate, but this felt like his ghost reaching out, or worse, someone new wearing his skin. "Let's hit the streets," I said, grabbing my coat. "Rossi's place. Maybe the killer left more than a mirror." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Now? Forensics hasn't even finished processing the alley." "Forensics takes too long. Rain's washing away whatever's left out there." I stood, ignoring the stab in my knee. "You coming, or you gonna keep playing secretary?" He grinned, undeterred by my tone, and grabbed his jacket. "Lead the way, old man." The drive to Hell's Kitchen was a slog through rain-slicked streets, the city's pulse muted under the downpour. Neon signs flickered through the haze, dive bars, pawn shops, a 24-hour deli with a busted "open" sign blinking erratically. Sound, windshield wipers thumping, low hum of tires on wet pavement. Inferno's Bite was a corner spot on 10th Avenue, all sleek glass and polished steel. A far cry from the greasy spoons of the old neighborhood. Gentrification hadn't erased the grit, it just dressed it up in fancier clothes. We parked and approached the restaurant, its windows dark, reflecting the streetlights like liquid mercury. The door was sealed with police tape, but a quick flash of my badge to the uniform outside got us in. Inside, the place smelled of charred herbs and cleaning fluid, the kind of sterile cover-up that screamed money. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, a bar stocked with top-shelf liquor. Rossi had built a palace on dirty cash. "Fancy for a drug front," Ryan said, whistling low. He poked at a menu on the bar. $40 for a burger. No wonder he got burned. I ignored him, scanning the room. The killer had chosen Rossi for a reason, not just his sins, but his visibility. A chef with a double life, flaunting wealth while dealing death. I moved to the kitchen, where stainless steel gleamed under our flashlights. Everything was pristine, too pristine, like it had been scrubbed to erase more than grease. "Check the office," I told Ryan, nodding toward a door marked private. He nodded and disappeared, while I examined the counters. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no ash. The murder hadn't happened here. Rossi had been taken to the alley, staged like a sacrifice. But why here? Why this place? My beam caught something under a prep table, a glint of glass. I crouched, cursing my knee, and fished it out with gloved hands. Another mirror shard, smaller than the first, no bigger than a credit card. No inscription this time, just a faint smudge of soot. I turned it over and my reflection stared back, distorted, fractured. My face looked older than I remembered, lines carved deeper by the shadows. "Elias?" Ryan called from the office. I pocketed the shard, protocol be damned, and limped to join him. The office was a mess, papers strewn across a mahogany desk, a safe cracked open, empty. Ryan held up a burner phone in an evidence bag. "Found this taped under the desk. Recent calls, all to unlisted numbers. Last one was 2 hours before the murder." I said, "Get it to tech, trace the calls, and check if Rossi had enemies dumb enough to leave a paper trail." Ryan nodded, but his eyes flicked to me, searching. "You're thinking it's him, the Sins killer, or someone copying him?" I didn't answer right away. The weight of the shard in my pocket felt heavier than it should. Voss is in Sing Sing. This is someone new, someone who knows my history. Ryan frowned, his optimism cracking just a bit. "How'd they know about the mirror? That wasn't in the papers." He was right. The mirrors were a detail we'd kept from the press back then, a signature Voss used to taunt me, reflecting my failures, he'd said. Only someone close to the case would know. A cop? A survivor? Or worse, someone Voss had mentored from behind bars. The thought made my stomach churn. We swept the rest of the place, but found nothing else out of order. Outside, the rain had eased to a drizzle, the city waking up in slow motion. Delivery trucks rumbled by, their headlights slicing through the mist. I lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the damp air, and leaned against the car. Ryan stood beside me, quieter than usual. "You ever think about quitting? I mean, retiring? Getting out of this mess?"
I exhaled, watching the smoke dissolve. Every day. But then I'd have to face myself without the badge. Not sure I'd like what I see. He didn't push, just nodded like he understood, though I doubted he did. Not yet. The job hadn't carved him up the way it had me. But it would. It always did. Back at the precinct, the burner phone's data came up empty. Calls routed through encrypted apps, untraceable. Forensics confirmed the second mirror shard matched the first. Same glass type, same deliberate break. No prints, no DNA. The killer was a ghost, leaving just enough to keep me chasing. I sat at my desk, staring at the shards side by side. My reflection stared back, split across the fractures. The inscription from the first shard looped in my head, devoured by fire. Gluttony, sure, but there was more. Fire wasn't just destruction, it was transformation, purification. Whoever this was, they weren't just killing, they were preaching. The phone rang again, same unknown number. I answered, my voice low. "Crowe." A chuckle, distorted but human. "You found my gift, detective. Do you see it yet? The fire cleanses, but it also reveals. Look closer." The line cut off. I slammed the phone down, heart pounding. Ryan looked up from his desk, alarmed. "Another one?" "Yeah," I said, standing. "Get your coat. We're going to Brooklyn. If this bastard's playing games, I want to know the rules." As we headed out, the rain picked up again, pounding the streets like a warning. Sound, rain hammering the roof, a low, ominous rhythm. The city felt alive, its shadows shifting, watching. Somewhere out there, the killer was waiting, holding a mirror to my past. And I had a sinking feeling that whatever I saw in it, I wouldn't like.
Chapter 3. The Mirror's Gaze. Brooklyn was a beast of its own, a sprawl of contradictions where brownstone sat cheek by jowl with crumbling tenements, and the rain only deepened its scars. It was late morning, but the sky hung low, gray as gunmetal, drenching the streets in a mist that clung to everything.
My knee screamed with every step as Ryan and I climbed out of the sedan on Atlantic Avenue, the air thick with the smell of wet concrete and exhaust. The call had come an hour ago. Another body. This one in a back alley brothel tucked behind a vape shop, the kind of place that operated in plain sight but stayed invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. The scene was already crawling with uniforms, their flashlights cutting through the gloom like knives. Yellow tape fluttered in the drizzle, cordoning off a narrow alley that reeked of piss and cheap perfume. I ducked under the tape, Ryan at my heels, his usual bounce subdued. The second murder in 48 hours wasn't sitting well with him. He was starting to see the city the way I did, a machine that chewed up hope and spat out bodies. The victim was female, late 20s, sprawled across a pile of garbage bags like a discarded doll. Her throat was slashed, the cut so precise it looked surgical, blood pooling in the cracks of the asphalt, diluted by the rain. She wore a red dress, torn at the shoulder, and her face, still beautiful despite the pallor, had that vacant stare that death carves into you. But it was the setup that stopped me cold. Her body was posed, legs crossed, hands folded over her chest, a cracked mirror shard tucked into her palm like a prayer card. "Forensics is en route," a uniform said, his voice tight. "ID says she's Lena Marquez, high-end escort, worked the boroughs. Cops knew her. She was a CI for Vice. A confidential informant, another double life. Lust, I thought, the word slithering into my mind like an unwelcome guest. Lena had lived in the shadows, trading secrets for survival, her beauty a currency in a city that devoured it. I crouched, ignoring the fire in my knee, and examined the mirror shard. Etched on the back, in the same precise script as before. "In desire's reflection, truth is cut bare." Not Dante this time, but close enough, twisted, personal. The killer was preaching again, and I was the congregation. "Same M.O., Ryan said, his voice low, almost a whisper. He was staring at the body, his jaw tight. Mirror, inscription, staged. This guy's not slowing down. I nodded, my eyes still on the shard. The reflection caught my face, haggard, shadowed, the lines deeper in the fractured glass. Lena's blood had dried in a thin smear across it, like a signature. I bagged the shard and handed it to Ryan. "Get this to the lab, check for prints, fibers, anything, and pull her Vice files. If she was snitching, someone might have wanted her quiet." He took the bag, his fingers brushing mine. "You think this is about her being a CI, or is it him again?" Him, Harlan Voss, the sins killer. Even locked away, his shadow loomed over every case like this, his voice whispering in my head from a decade ago, "You'll never escape your descent, Crowe." I shook it off. Not Voss. Someone new. Someone who knows too much. We canvassed the alley, but the rain had done its work, washing away footprints, tire marks, anything useful. A couple of working girls lingered nearby, wrapped in cheap jackets, their eyes darting like cornered animals. One, a brunette with a lip ring, said Lena had been jumping lately, talking about a creepy client who paid too much and asked too many questions. No name, no description, just a feeling. In this city, feelings got you killed. Back at the precinct, the air was stale with coffee and desperation. I slumped into my chair, the headache from last night's whiskey now a full-blown hammer behind my eyes. Ryan was already at his laptop, pulling Lena's files. She was feeding Vice intel on a trafficking ring. Big players, Russian mob. She'd been at it for a year, playing both sides, escort and snitch. No wonder she got cut.
I poured a fresh coffee, black and scalding, and stared at the evidence board. Rossi's charred corpse, Lena's bloodied one, the mirror shards linking them like a chain. Gluttony and lust, 2 sins down. 5 to go if the pattern held. But this wasn't just about sins, it was about duality. Rossi, the chef dealer. Lena, the escort informant. Lives split in 2, exposed by fire and blade. The killer was peeling back masks, and I couldn't shake the feeling mine was next. My phone buzzed. A text, not a call this time. Unknown number. I opened it, my pulse quickening. A photo, grainy but clear enough, me, standing in the alley last night, rain-soaked, staring at Rossi's body. The caption read, "Do you see it yet, Elias? Your shadow watches." My blood ran cold. He'd been there, close enough to snap a picture, close enough to smell my cigarette. Faint buzz of the phone, a low hum of the precinct's chaos. "Ryan," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "Check the precinct's security feed. Last night, outside the alley. Look for anyone lingering." He frowned but nodded, diving into the system. I stared at the photo, my own face staring back, caught in the killer's lens. It wasn't just a taunt, it was a declaration. He was watching, studying, mirroring my every move. I thought of Voss again, his letters from prison, always hinting he wasn't done with me. Had he passed the torch? Trained someone to pick up where he left off? The whiskey bottle in my desk drawer called, but I ignored it, grabbing a cigarette instead. I stepped outside, the rain now a fine mist, the city's skyline a jagged silhouette against the clouds. I lit up, the smoke curling into the damp air, and let my mind churn. The mirrors, the inscriptions, the sins, they weren't random. They were a map, leading me somewhere I didn't want to go. Back to the past, to the case that had cracked me open. Voss had called it my descent, said I'd find myself in the darkness. This killer, this mirror, was betting on it. Ryan joined me, his face grim. Nothing on the cameras. Too much rain, too many shadows. Whoever took that photo knew how to stay invisible.
Of course they did, I muttered, exhaling smoke. This guy's a pro. Ex-cop, maybe. Someone who knows our playbook. Ryan's eyes widened. "You think it's one of us?" I didn't answer. The thought was a blade in my gut, but it fit. The precision, the knowledge of my history, the mirrors, a detail only someone inside the case would know. I flicked a cigarette into a puddle, watching it hiss out. Pull records on any cops who worked the Voss case. Anyone who left the force, got fired, went dark. "That's a long list," Ryan said, but he was already moving, his optimism replaced by something harder, sharper. The job was getting to him, just like I'd predicted. Back inside, I tacked the photo to the evidence board, right next to the shards. My face, Rossi's, Lena's, all caught in the killer's gaze. I thought about the inscription. Truth is cut bare. Lena's truth was her betrayal, her double life as a snitch. Rossi's was his greed, feeding the city's appetites while poisoning it. What was mine? The whiskey? The insomnia? The badge I couldn't let go? Or something deeper, buried in the scars of a case I'd never escaped? The precinct hummed around me, but I felt alone, the weight of the killer's eyes pressing down. Sound, rain tapping the windows, a slow, relentless rhythm. I was being hunted, not just by a murderer, but by my own reflection, a shadow that knew my sins better than I did. And as I stared at the board, I wondered how long I could keep running before it caught up.
Chapter 4. Chasing Echoes. The rain had settled into a steady drizzle by the time we hit Harlem, the streets glistening under the sodium glow of streetlights. It was late afternoon, the city grinding through its daily churn, but the air felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. My knee throbbed as I climbed out of the sedan on 125th Street, the pain a constant reminder that I was too old for this shit. Ryan was already scanning the block, his eyes sharp, still clinging to that spark of purpose I'd lost somewhere along the way. We were chasing a lead from Lena Marquez's Vice file, a pimp named Reggie Silk Turner, known for running girls like Lena and rumored to have ties to the Russian mob she'd been snitching on. If anyone knew about her creepy client, it was him. Sound. muted jazz spilling from a nearby bar, blending with the hiss of tires on wet pavement. The address led us to a dive called the Blue Note, a hole-in-the-wall joint tucked between a bodega and a shuttered laundromat. Neon flickered in the window, the E in blue buzzing erratically, casting jagged shadows on the sidewalk. Inside, the place was a haze of cigarette smoke and cheap liquor, the kind of spot where deals were sealed and secrets buried. A handful of patrons nursed drinks at the bar, their eyes sliding away from us the second we walked in. Cops weren't welcome here, badge or no badge. I spotted Silk in a corner booth, all flash and no substance. Gold chain, slick suit, a grin that said he owned the room. He was mid-conversation with a wiry guy in a hoodie, but his eyes locked on mine as we approached, like he'd been expecting me. That set my nerves on edge. I'd learned long ago that men like Silk didn't survive by being careless. "Reggie Turner," I said, flashing my badge, just long enough to make it official. "NYPD, we need to talk."
Silk leaned back, his grin widening. "Detective Crowe, right? Heard about you, the sins killer guy. What brings you to my humble establishment?" His voice was smooth, practiced, but there was a glint in his eye. Amusement, maybe, or something darker. "Lena Marquez," I said, keeping my tone flat. "She worked for you. Now she's dead. Throat cut, posed like a goddamn art project. You know anything about that?" His grin faltered, just for a second. "Lena? Shit, that's rough. She was a good earner. But I don't know nothing about no murder. Girls like her, they take risks. Comes with the territory." Ryan stepped forward, his patience thinner than usual. "Cut the crap, Silk. She was your CI, feeding vice dirt on your Russian pals. Someone didn't like that. Who was she meeting last night?" Silk's eyes flicked to Ryan, sizing him up. "You're the new guy, huh? Buffalo boy? Look, I don't track my girl's every move. Lena had clients, high rollers. She didn't share names, and I didn't ask." I leaned in, close enough to smell his cologne, too sweet, like overripe fruit. "She mentioned a client. Creepy, paid too much, asked too many questions. Sound familiar?" He shrugged, but his fingers tapped the table, a nervous tell. "Lots of weirdos out there, Detective. Lena was a pro. She handled them. If she got in over her head, that's on her." I wanted to slam his head into the table, but I held back. Men like Silk thrived on control, and losing my temper would just give him the upper hand. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo the killer had sent me in the alley, rain-soaked, staring at Rossi's body. "This mean anything to you?" His eyes narrowed, just a fraction, but enough to tell me he recognized something. "Nah, man. Looks like you got a fan, though." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. We left him there, his laughter trailing us out the door. He knew more than he was saying, but pressing harder would have shut him down. Outside, the drizzle coated my coat, the city's pulse thrumming under my feet. Sound of faint siren wailing in the distance, fading into the rain's soft patter. I lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the mist. Ryan was quiet, his jaw tight, the kid's optimism fraying at the edges. "He's lying," Ryan said finally, leaning against the car. "He knows who Lena was with." "Yeah," I said, exhaling. "But he's scared. Means whoever's behind this has pull, or leverage." My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I answered, bracing myself. That same distorted voice, low and deliberate. "You're chasing echoes, Elias. The mirror shows what you refuse to see. Harlem's just the beginning."
The line went dead. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. The killer was close, always one step ahead, watching my every move. I felt like I was back in that warehouse 10 years ago, Voss's laughter ringing in my ears as he slipped through my fingers. This wasn't just a copycat, it was personal, a blade aimed at my past. "Another call?" Ryan asked, his voice tense. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. "He's in Harlem, or was." Said, "This is just the start." Ryan's eyes hardened, the last of his buffalo shine dimming. "What's his endgame? Why you?" I didn't have an answer, not one I wanted to voice. The mirrors, the sins, the taunts, they were a map, and I was being led somewhere dark. I thought about the evidence board back at the precinct, Rossi's charred body, Lena's bloodied one, the inscriptions twisting scripture into something profane, gluttony and lust, each victim a mirror of their own duplicity. And now the killer was holding one up to me, daring me to look. "Let's move," I said, flicking the cigarette into the gutter. "We need to check Lena's last knowns, her apartment, her clients. If Silk won't talk, we'll find someone who will." We drove to Lena's place, a run-down walk-up in East Harlem, the kind of building that looked like it was one bad storm away from collapsing. The super let us in, grumbling about unpaid rent. Her apartment was a single room, cluttered but clean, a bed with satin sheets, a dresser stuffed with lingerie, a stack of burner phones in a drawer. No personal photos, no letters, just the tools of her trade. But under the bed, tucked in a shoebox, was something else, a stack of Polaroids, grainy and old. One caught my eye, a younger me, maybe 15 years ago, standing outside a precinct, my face unlined, my eyes still believing in something. Sound, a faint creak of floorboards, the hum of a dying fluorescent bulb. "Where the hell did she get this?" Ryan asked, peering over my shoulder. I didn't answer. My chest tightened, the air suddenly too thin. The photo was from the Voss case, a candid snap during the media frenzy. It wasn't public, only someone on the inside would have had it. Lena had been holding on to it, maybe as leverage, maybe as a trophy. Or maybe the killer had left it for me to find. "Bag it," I said, my voice rough, "and get it to the lab. Check for prints." Ryan nodded, but his eyes lingered on me, searching for cracks. "You okay, Elias? This is getting weird." "Getting?" I snorted, forcing a smirk. "We passed weird 2 bodies ago." But he was not wrong. The killer wasn't just targeting sinners, he was targeting me, digging up my past like a grave robber. I thought about the inscription, "Truth is cut bare." Lena's truth was her betrayal, snitching while seducing. Rossi's was his greed, cooking drugs with his cuisine. What was mine? The badge I clung to, the whiskey I drowned in, the case I couldn't let go of, or something worse, something I'd buried so deep I couldn't face it. We left the apartment, the rain picking up again, hammering the city like a judgment. Sound, rain pounding the roof, a low, relentless roar. As we drove back to the precinct, I felt the weight of the Polaroid in my pocket, heavier than the gun on my hip. The killer was out there, a shadow moving through the city, reflecting every step, and I was starting to wonder if I was chasing him, or if he was leading me right into the dark.
Chapter 5. Burning Bridges. The rain had turned Central Park into a sodden labyrinth, its paths slick with mud, its trees drooping under the weight of the storm. It was nearing dusk, the sky a bruised purple, casting long shadows that twisted like fingers across the wet grass. My knee was a furnace of pain as Ryan and I trudged toward the crime scene, a secluded clearing near the Ramble, cordoned off by yellow tape that flapped in the wind. The call had come just after noon. Another body, another mirror, another message. 3 murders in 4 days, and the city was starting to feel like a pressure cooker ready to blow. The victim was male, mid-50s, strung up by his ankles from a low branch, his body swaying like a grotesque pendulum. His throat was slit, blood dripping into a pool below, the rain diluting it to a sickly pink. His suit, expensive, tailored, was soaked through, but the killer had taken care to pin a mirror shard to his chest, glinting faintly in the dim light. The word sloth was carved into his abdomen, the cut shallow but deliberate, as if the killer had savored the act. I crouched, ignoring the scream in my knee, and read the inscription on the shard. "In idleness, the soul rots, and the mirror shows its decay." The script was the same, precise, taunting, a sermon meant for me.
Jesus, Ryan muttered, his breath visible in the chilly air. He was pale, the weight of these killings finally cracking his buffalo-bred optimism. "Who is this guy?" I said, glancing at the ID in the evidence bag a uniform handed me. "State Assembly. Big on public works, bigger on taking bribes to stall them. Word is he'd sit on projects for years while pocketing kickbacks. Lazy bastard let the city crumble to line his pockets. Sloth. Another double life. Whitaker, the public servant who preached progress while dragging his feet for profit. The killer was peeling back layers again, exposing the rot beneath the polish. I scanned the scene. No footprints in the mud. No drag marks. No signs of a struggle. The guy was a pro, moving through the rain like a ghost, leaving only what he wanted us to find. "Check the perimeter," I told Ryan. "Look for anything, cigarette butts, wrappers, anything he might have dropped." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the body, the senator's lifeless sway hypnotic in the fading light. "This is escalating, Elias. 3 bodies, 3 sins. He's not stopping."
"I know," I said, my voice rougher than I meant. The mirror shard caught my reflection. Gaunt, eyes sunken, a man running on fumes and whiskey. I'd barely slept since Rossi, the killer's taunts looping in my head like a bad song. That Polaroid from Lena's apartment sat heavy in my coat pocket, a reminder that this wasn't just about the victims, it was about me. Back at the precinct, the evidence board was starting to look like a shrine to my failures. Rossi's charred remains, Lena's bloodied throat, now Whitaker's carved-up corpse, all linked by mirrors and sins. I pinned the new shard next to the others, the inscriptions forming a twisted gospel. Gluttony, devoured by fire. Lust, cut bare. Sloth, rotting in idleness. The killer was building something, a narrative I was meant to unravel, but every step felt like sinking deeper into quicksand. Ryan dropped the file on my desk, his face grim. Whitaker's financials, dirty as they come. Offshore accounts, shell companies, payoffs from construction firms. He was stalling a subway expansion for a cool $1 million. Sloth doesn't even cover it. I nodded, sipping coffee that tasted like ash. He's picking them for a reason. Not just their sins, but their lies. Rossi was a dealer disguised as a chef. Lena, a snitch posing as an escort. Whitaker, a senator playing the saint while selling out the city. "And you?" Ryan asked, his voice low, almost hesitant. "What's he trying to say about you?" I froze, the question cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. The killer's calls, the photo, the Polaroid, they weren't random. He knew me, knew my history with Voss, knew the scars I carried from that case. The mirrors weren't just for the victims. They were for me, reflecting something I wasn't ready to face. My hand twitched toward the whiskey bottle in my drawer, but I stopped myself. "Not now. Not yet." I said, "Run Whitaker's contacts. Anyone he met recently, anyone who might have known about the bribes. If this guy's targeting double lives, he's doing his homework." Ryan hesitated, like he wanted to push, but he let it go and turned to his laptop. I stepped outside for a cigarette, the rain now a fine mist that clung to my skin. The city stretched out below, a sprawl of lights flickering like dying stars.
"You're slow, Elias," the distorted voice purred. "Sloth suits you, doesn't it? Always one step behind, chasing shadows while the city burns. Look in the mirror. What do you see?" I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "Why don't you show yourself, you coward? Stop hiding behind riddles." A low chuckle, like static over a grave. "Patience, detective. The fire's coming for you too. Central Park was just a spark." The line went dead. I stood there, the cigarette burning down to my fingers, the rain soaking through my coat. He was close. I could feel it, that itch at the back of my neck that never lied. But where? Harlem? Brooklyn? Now Central Park? He was circling, drawing me into his game, and I was playing it blind. Back inside, Ryan had a lead. A meeting Whitaker had with an unknown contact 2 nights ago, logged in his calendar as consultant. No name, no address, just a time and place, a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, not far from Rossi's restaurant. Too close to be coincidence. "Let's go," I said, grabbing my coat. "We need to shake that place down." Ryan frowned. "Now? It's late, Elias. Forensics hasn't even—" "Forget forensics," I snapped. "This guy's moving faster than they are. We hit the bar, talk to the staff, see if anyone saw Whitaker with his consultant." He didn't argue, just followed me out into the rain. The bar was a dive called the Rusty Anchor, a relic of the old neighborhood with peeling paint and a neon sign that flickered like a dying pulse. Sound, muffled rock music leaking through the door, rain tapping on the awning. Inside, it was all sticky floors and dim lights, the air thick with stale beer and regret. The bartender, a guy with a face like a punched loaf, claimed he didn't remember Whitaker, but his eyes said otherwise. I slid a 20 across the counter, and suddenly his memory improved. "Yeah, saw the guy. Fancy suit, looked at a place. Met some dude in a hoodie, kept his head down. They talked low, left quick. Didn't catch no names. Description? Tall, maybe 6'2". Moved like he knew what he was doing. Cop vibes, you know? Cop vibes. My stomach twisted. I thanked him and stepped outside, lighting another cigarette to steady my hands. Ryan was quiet, that I could feel his questions piling up. An ex-cop, just like I'd suspected, someone who knew the Voss case, knew the mirrors, knew me. The list of names from the old case was still being pulled, but it was narrowing, and every name on it felt like a betrayal waiting to happen. As we drove back to the precinct, the rain intensified, pounding the windshield like a warning. Sound, wipers thumping, a low rumble of thunder. The killer was out there, a shadow mirroring every step I took, and I was starting to see my own face in the fractures he left behind. Sloth wasn't just Whitaker's sin, it was mine too. Clinging to this job, to this city, too afraid to let go and face what was left of me. And the killer knew it, holding up a mirror I couldn't escape.
Chapter 6. The heat rises. The rain had finally eased, leaving Manhattan slick and shimmering under a sky the color of ash. It was nearing midnight, and the city pulsed with a restless energy, as if it knew something was coming. My knee was a dull roar as I sat in the precinct, staring at the evidence board like it held the answers to my unraveling. Rossi's charred corpse, Lena's slashed throat, Whitaker's carved-up body. 3 sins, 3 mirrors, 3 taunts. The killer's game was tightening around me, each move more deliberate, more personal. The Polaroid from Lena's apartment weighed heavy in my pocket, my younger self staring out from a decade ago, back when I still thought I could win. Ryan was across from me, his eyes bloodshot but focused, digging through the list of ex-cops from the Voss case. We'd narrowed it to a handful, guys who'd left the force under a cloud, disciplined for excessive force or worse. One name kept circling in my head, Daniel Kane, a detective who'd been my partner before Ryan, back during the Sins killer case. Kane had been sharp, ruthless, but he'd cracked under the pressure, got caught shaking down dealers, and was forced out. Last I'd heard, he'd vanished into the city's underbelly. Could he be the mirror? The thought made my skin crawl, but it fit. Too well. "Got something," Ryan said, breaking the silence. He slid a file across my desk. Kane's last known address, from 2 years ago. Brooklyn, some shithole apartment. No record since, but he was spotted near Hell's Kitchen last month, working private security. Shady outfit, tied to the same Russians Lena was snitching on.
I nodded, my jaw tight. Kane. He'd known the Voss case inside out, knew the mirrors, knew my weaknesses. He'd been there when I'd cornered Voss, seen the kid's body, seen me break. If anyone could twist that knife, it was him. "We need to find him," I said, "now." But before we could move, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I answered, my pulse already pounding. "Crowe," I said, voice low. "You're getting warmer, Elias," the distorted voice purred, smooth as venom. "But you're still chasing ghosts. The fire's rising. Can you feel it?" A pause, then a chuckle. "Wall Street's burning tonight. Don't be late." The line went dead. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking. "Wall Street," I told Ryan. "He's hitting again. Let's move." We tore through the city, sirens screaming, the sedan cutting through the damp streets like a blade. Wall Street at midnight was a ghost town, its towers of glass and steel looming like silent sentinels. The address from the call led us to a side street, a narrow alley behind a hedge fund's sleek headquarters. Yellow tape was already up, uniforms swarming, their faces pale under the streetlights. The victim was male, early 40s, strung up on a fire escape, his body doused in accelerant and burned to a husk. The smell hit me like a fist. Charred flesh, gasoline, and something sharper, like molten metal. His suit was reduced to ash, but a gold watch gleamed on his wrist, untouched by the flames. Another mirror shard hung from a chain around his neck, the inscription clear even in the dim light. "For greed's endless hunger, fire consumes all." Greed, the fourth sin. I didn't need the ID to know who this was. Victor Lang, a hedge fund shark who'd made millions shorting failing companies while running insider scams on the side. Another double life, another mask ripped off. "Forensics is on the way," a uniform said, his voice shaky. "No witnesses, just this." He gestured to the body, the mirror glinting like a cruel eye. I crouched, my knee protesting, and studied the scene. The fire had been precise, controlled, burning only the body and nothing else. No scorch marks on the fire escape, no debris. This wasn't rage, it was surgical. Like Rossi's murder, like Cain. I thought of his hands, steady and cold, the way he'd always carried himself like he was one step ahead. If he was the mirror, he was playing a game I didn't fully understand yet. Ryan was already on his phone, pulling Lang's financials. "Guy's a piece of work," he said, scrolling. "SEC had him under investigation for years, but he always slipped the net. Offshore accounts, fake charities, the works. Greed doesn't even cover it." I nodded, but my eyes were on the mirror. My reflection stared back, fractured, distorted by the cracks. The killer was taunting me, daring me to see something. Myself, maybe? Or the truth I'd been dodging since Voss? I bagged the shard and handed it to Ryan. "Get this to the lab, and pull everything on Cain. Bank records, phone logs, anything. If he's our guy, he's not invisible."
Back at the precinct, the air was thick with tension, the bullpen buzzing with late-night urgency. I tacked the new shard to the evidence board, the inscriptions forming a grim litany: gluttony, lust, sloth, now greed. 4 down, 3 to go. But it wasn't just the sins. It was the mirrors, the duality, the way each victim's hidden life was laid bare. And then there was me, Elias Crowe, the cop who couldn't let go, drowning in whiskey and guilt, my own double life exposed in every taunt the killer sent. Ryan dropped a new file on my desk. "Cain's financials are a mess," he said. "Bounced around private security gigs, but there's gaps, big ones. Last year he was paid through a shell company tied to Lang's firm. Could be a connection." My stomach twisted. Cain and Lang. The ex-cop and the greedy shark. It was too neat, too perfect. I thought back to the Voss case, to Cain's last days on the force. He'd been angry, bitter, railing about the system screwing us over.
I'd brushed it off as burnout. But what if it was more? What if he'd turned, taken Voss's playbook, and aimed it at me? The mirrors, the calls, the Polaroid, they all pointed to someone who knew my scars, someone who'd seen me at my lowest.
I poured a coffee, the burn of it grounding me, but my hand strayed to the whiskey bottle in my drawer. I stopped myself, clenching my fist. Not yet. I needed to stay sharp, because the killer wasn't just escalating, he was accelerating. Wall Street, Central Park, Brooklyn, Hell's Kitchen. He was painting the city with blood and fire, and I was running out of time to catch up. My phone buzzed again. Another text, same unknown number. A photo this time. Me, standing in the alley tonight, staring at Lang's body, the rain glinting off my coat. The caption read, "The fire rises, Elias. Will you burn with it?" I showed it to Ryan, my voice tight. He's close, too close. We need to set a trap. Ryan's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. How? We don't even know where he'll hit next. We don't, I said, my mind racing. But he's watching me. If we can't find him, we make him come to us. The precinct hummed around us, but I felt the killer's gaze, sharp as a blade, cutting through the noise. Sound, rain tapping the windows, a slow, relentless rhythm, like a heartbeat. Kane or not, the mirror was out there, holding up a reflection I couldn't ignore. Greed, lust, sloth, gluttony, each murder stripped away a layer, exposing the city's rot and my own. I was being hunted, not just by a killer, but by my past, and the heat was rising, threatening to consume me whole.
Chapter 7. Dual Reflections. Queens was a maze of contradictions, where industrial sprawl bled into quiet residential streets, and the rain seemed to cling to the air like a bad memory. It was just past dawn, the sky a sickly gray, the city waking under a veil of mist. My knee was a constant scream as Ryan and I pulled up to a warehouse in Long Island City, its rusted facade looming like a forgotten giant. The call had come an hour ago. Another body, another mirror, another sin. 5 murders in 6 days, and the weight of it was crushing me, each crime scene a step deeper into a hell I couldn't escape. Sound, distant clatter of a train, rain tapping on the car's roof like impatient fingers. The warehouse was a cavern of shadows, its air thick with dust and the tang of oil. Yellow tape marked off a corner where the body lay, illuminated by portable floodlights that cast harsh angles across the concrete floor. The victim was female, mid-30s, suspended from a rafter by a chain, her body twisted in an unnatural arc. Her eyes were wide open, frozen in terror, and her hands were bound behind her, a mirror shard tied to her wrist with wire. The word envy was carved across her chest, the cuts precise, almost delicate. Blood had pooled below, mingling with the rain that leaked through the roof. I read the inscription on the shard. In envy's gaze, the heart covets and breaks. The same script, the same taunt. Another sermon meant for me. Forensics is en route, a uniform said, his voice barely above a whisper. ID's on her. Claire Novak, corporate lawyer. Worked for a tech firm, but she was moonlighting. Industrial espionage, selling trade secrets to competitors. Envy. Another double life, another mask torn away. Claire had played the loyal attorney by day, stealing secrets by night, coveting what others had built. I crouched, my knee protesting, and studied the scene. The chain was industrial, the knots professional, someone who knew their way around a rigging. The mirror shard glinted under the floodlights, catching my reflection, haggard, eyes sunken, a man fraying at the edges. Ryan was already pacing, his usual energy replaced by something restless, almost angry. This is getting out of hand, Elias. 5 bodies, 5 sins. He's not just killing, he's putting on a damn show. Yeah, I said, my voice rough, and I'm the audience. The warehouse yielded little. No prints, no fibers, just the body in the mirror. The killer was a ghost, leaving only what he wanted us to find. But every crime scene felt more personal, like he was peeling back my skin along with the victims. The Polaroid from Lena's apartment, the photo of me at Rossi's scene, the calls. They were all threads in a web, and I was caught in the center. Daniel Kane's name burned in my mind. Ex-cop, ex-partner, someone who'd seen me at my lowest, who knew the Voss case like his own heartbeat. If he was the mirror, he was playing me like a fiddle, and I was dancing to his tune. Back at the precinct, the evidence board was a nightmare collage. Rossi's charred husk, Lena's slashed throat, Whitaker's carved abdomen, Lang's burned remains, now Claire's twisted corpse. 5 sins: gluttony, lust, sloth, greed, envy. 2 left: pride and wrath. I tacked the new shard next to the others, their inscriptions a litany of judgment. Ryan dropped a file on my desk, his face grim.
Novak's financials, he said. She was pulling in 6 figures from her firm, plus another $500,000 selling secrets. Had a burner phone with calls to a number tied to Kane's last known alias. It's him, Elias. It's gotta be. I nodded, my jaw tight. Kane. The pieces were falling into place, but they didn't feel right, not completely. Kane had been a hothead, sure, but this level of precision, this obsession with mirrors and sins, felt like something else, something deeper, darker, like Voss himself was whispering from his cell in Sing Sing. I checked the prison logs yesterday. Voss hadn't had visitors in months, but that didn't mean he wasn't pulling strings. Or maybe I was chasing ghosts, seeing patterns where there were none. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered, bracing myself. "Crowe," I said, my voice a low growl. "You're close, Elias," the distorted voice said, smooth and cold. "But you're looking in the wrong mirror. Envy blinds you, just like it did her. Do you covet what you've lost? Your youth, your faith, your chance at redemption?" A pause, then a laugh. "Queens is just a step. The next one's closer to home." The line went dead. I gripped the phone, my heart pounding. Closer to home. The words echoed, stirring memories I'd buried deep. My apartment, my solitude, the whiskey that kept the ghosts at bay. I thought of the Polaroid, my younger self staring out, untouched by the years that had carved me hollow. The killer wasn't just targeting sinners. He was targeting me, forcing me to confront the man I'd been, the man I'd become.
"Another call?" Ryan asked, his eyes searching mine. "Yeah," I said, pocketing the phone. "He's in Queens, or was. Says the next one's personal." Ryan's jaw tightened. "We need to end this, Elias. Set that trap you were talking about." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the call. The killer knew me, knew my doubts, my regrets, the weight of the badge I couldn't let go. I lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the precinct's stale air, and stepped outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the city glistening under a rare break in the clouds. I exhaled, watching the smoke dissolve, and thought about Kane. He'd been my shadow once, my partner, someone I'd trusted with my life. If he was the mirror, he'd betrayed more than the force. He betrayed me. Back inside, Ryan had a plan. He said we use you as bait, his voice steady despite the exhaustion in his eyes. He's watching you, right? So we stage something. Make it look like you're vulnerable. Draw him out. Maybe a late-night stakeout, somewhere isolated. I raised an eyebrow. "You want me to play damsel in distress?"
He smirked, a flicker of his old self. "You're already halfway there, old man." I snorted, but he wasn't wrong. The killer was circling,
closer with every murder, and I was running out of moves. We settled on a plan, a staged patrol in an abandoned lot in Queens, near where Claire was found. I'd be alone, or appear to be, with Ryan and a TAC team hidden nearby. Risky, but we were out of options. As we prepped, I pulled the Polaroid from my pocket, staring at my younger face. I'd been cocky then, thought I could save the world, or at least this city. Voss had shattered that illusion, and now the mirror was picking up the pieces, forcing me to look at the wreckage. Envy wasn't just Claire's sin, it was mine too. Envying the man I'd been, the one who still believed in something. The whiskey bottle in my drawer called louder than ever, but I ignored it, tucking the photo away. We had it out, the city sprawling around us, its lights flickering like a dying pulse. The trap was set, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was walking into his game, not mine. Kane or not, the mirror was out there, reflecting my every failure, and I was starting to see myself in the fractures, broken, haunted, and running out of time.
Chapter 8. Flames of the Past. The ports of Red Hook were a graveyard of steel and salt, where rusted cranes loomed over the water like skeletal giants, and the air carried the bite of diesel and decay. It was just after midnight, the rain a faint drizzle now, slicking the docks with a sheen that reflected the distant city lights. My knee was a dull roar as Ryan and I approached the crime scene, a derelict pier cordoned off by yellow tape that sagged in the damp air. The call had come an hour ago. Another body, another mirror, another sin. 6 murders in a week, and each one felt like a noose tightening around my neck. Sound of waves lapping against the pier, a low creak of rusted metal swaying in the wind. The victim was male, late 40s, lashed to a piling with heavy rope, his body charred black, the smell of burned flesh and accelerant thick enough to choke on. His face was unrecognizable, but the Navy insignia on his singed jacket gave him away. Captain Thomas Hargrove, a decorated officer who'd run the port's security detail. A mirror shard hung from a chain around his neck, glinting under the floodlights. The inscription read, "Pride's Tower burns, revealing the hollow core." Pride, the 6th sin. I crouched, my knees screaming, and studied the scene. The fire had been precise, consuming only Hargrove, leaving the piling untouched. Another surgical strike, another message. Sound of faint crackle of cooling embers, rain hissing on the dock. "Forensics is on their way," a uniform said, his voice tight. IDs confirmed by his tags. Hargrove was under investigation for smuggling, drugs, weapons, you name it. Played the hero while running a black market ring right under the Navy's nose. Another double life. Hargrove, the proud captain, saluted by day, smuggling by night. The killer was relentless, exposing the city's hypocrites one by one, each murder a mirror held up to their lies, and to mine. I bagged the shard, my reflection fractured in its surface, my face a map of exhaustion and doubt. The Polaroid from Lena's apartment was still in my pocket, a ghost from the Voss case. And now this, another echo of that old nightmare, dragging me back to a warehouse where I lost more than just a case.
Ryan was pacing, his usual spark replaced by a hard edge. The trap we'd set in Queens had been a bust. Nothing but rain and shadows. The killer slipping through our fingers again. "This guy's a machine," Ryan said, his voice low. 6 bodies, 6 sins. 1 left. "He's building to something big, Elias." "Yeah," I muttered, my mind elsewhere. Daniel Kane. The ex-cop, my old partner, was still our best lead. His connection to Lang's firm, his history with the Voss case, the way he'd always moved like he was untouchable, it all pointed to him. But doubt gnawed at me. Kane had been sloppy, driven by anger, not this kind of precision. Was he really capable of this? Or was I chasing the wrong shadow, blinded by my own past? Back at the precinct, the evidence board was a shrine to my dissent. Rossi's charred remains, Lena's slashed throat,
Whitaker's carved abdomen, Lang's burned husk, Claire's twisted corpse, now Hargrove's ashen ruin. 6 sins: gluttony, lust, sloth, greed, envy, pride. Wrath was next, and I could feel its heat building, a fire waiting to consume. I tacked the new shard to the board, the inscriptions a twisted scripture that seemed to mock me. Pride's tower burns. Hargrove's pride had been his downfall. But what about mine? The badge I couldn't let go. The belief I could still make a difference, even after all these years. Ryan dropped a file on my desk. Hargrove's financials, he said. He was raking it in, millions in offshore accounts, tied to the same Russian network Lena was snitching on. And get this, one of his contacts was a security firm that employed Kane last year.
My stomach twisted. Kane again. The threads were tightening, but they still didn't weave a clear picture. I leaned back, my headache pulsing, the whiskey bottle in my drawer whispering louder than ever. I ignored it, grabbing a cigarette instead and stepping outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with the city's breath. I lit up, the smoke curling into the night, and let my mind drift to the Voss case.
Ryan hesitated, his eyes searching mine. "You sure? This guy's not playing, Elias. He's steps ahead, and you're not looking good." He wasn't wrong. I was running on fumes, my body a wreck, my mind a tangle of guilt and doubt, but I couldn't stop, not with wrath looming, not with the killer so close I could almost feel his breath. "I'm fine," I lied. "Set it up. Somewhere downtown, near the ports. He's circling, and I want him close." We planned the trap, a staged patrol near the Brooklyn docks, me alone, Ryan and a TAC team hidden in the shadows. Risky, but we were out of moves. As we prepped, I pulled the Polaroid from my pocket, staring at my younger self. That Elias Crowe had been fearless, unscarred, ready to take on the world. Now I was a shadow of him, clinging to a badge that felt heavier every day. The killer knew it, saw it, reflected it back in every mirror he left behind. We headed out, the city sprawling around us, its lights flickering like a warning. Rain starting again, a soft patter on the windshield. The trap was set, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was walking into a fire I wouldn't escape. Kane or not, the mirror was out there, holding up a reflection of my pride, my refusal to let go, my belief I could still win. And as the docks loomed closer, I wondered if this time the flames would finally consume me.
Chapter 9. The Cat and Mouse. The Bronx at night was a beast carved from concrete and despair, its streets a labyrinth of shadows where the rain seemed to pool in every crack and crevice. It was past 2 in the morning, the air thick with the smell of wet asphalt and garbage, as Ryan and I approached the abandoned lot we'd chosen for the trap. The place was a relic of the city's decay, an old factory site, its skeleton of rusted girders and broken windows looming like a forgotten cathedral. We'd staged it carefully, me, alone, patrolling the perimeter with a flashlight, while Ryan and a TAC team waited in the shadows, hidden in a nearby warehouse. The killer had been circling me, taunting me with calls and photos, and tonight I was the bait to draw him out. Sound, faint howl of wind through broken windows, rain tapping on shattered glass. My knee throbbed with every step, the pain a steady pulse that matched the pounding in my chest. The Polaroid from Liana's apartment was still in my pocket, its image of my younger self a ghost that wouldn't leave me alone. 6 murders, 6 sins, gluttony, lust, sloth, greed, envy, pride. And now we were down to the last, wrath. The killer, the mirror, was building to something big, and I could feel it in the air, a heat that wasn't just the city's summer swelter. Daniel Kane, my old partner, was still our best suspect, his shadow looming over every crime scene, every mirror shard. But doubt gnawed at me.
Kane was a blunt instrument, not this surgical phantom. Was I chasing the wrong man, or was he just that good now?
I swept my flashlight across the lot, the beam catching glints of rain-slicked metal and broken glass. The TAC team's comms crackled in my ear, Ryan's voice low. "No movement yet, Elias. Stay sharp." I grunted in response, my eyes scanning the darkness. The killer had been close, too close every time, snapping photos, leaving mirrors, whispering taunts. He was watching, and I was betting he couldn't resist a chance to get closer. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement, just beyond the edge of the lot, where the shadows pooled deepest. A figure, tall and lean, darted between two rusted shipping containers. My pulse spiked, and I tightened my grip on my Glock, keeping the flashlight steady. "Ryan, I've got eyes on something," I whispered into the comms. "North side, near the containers. Move in slow." "Copy," Ryan said, his voice tense. "Hold position. We're coming." But I didn't hold. I couldn't. The figure moved again, a silhouette against the faint glow of a distant street lamp, and I followed, my boots crunching on gravel, the rain soaking through my coat. The lot was a maze of debris, old tires, broken pallets, twisted rebar, and every shadow felt like a threat. I kept my flashlight low, my gun raised, my senses screaming. He was here. I could feel him.
The figure vanished behind a container, and I rounded the corner, heart pounding. Nothing. Just rain and silence. Then a glint caught my eye. A mirror shard, propped against a crate, reflecting my flashlight's beam. No inscription this time, just my face staring back, fractured and pale. I froze, the air suddenly too thin. He'd been here, seconds ago, leaving this for me to find. A taunt, a lure. "Elias, status," Ryan's voice crackled in my ear. "Mirror shard," I said, my voice low. "He's playing with me. Stay sharp." I backed away, sweeping the flashlight around, but the lot was empty, the shadows mocking me. Then my phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered, my blood running cold. "Crowe?" I growled. "You're chasing your own tail, Elias," the distorted voice said, smooth and mocking. "Wrath's coming, and you're too blind to see it. Look in the mirror, what's left of you." The line went dead. I spun, gun raised, half expecting him to step out of the dark. Nothing, just the rain and the echo of his words. My reflection in the shard stared back, a man broken by time and guilt, the weight of 30 years on the force pressing down. I thought of Voss, of Kane, of the kid who died in that warehouse a decade ago. Wrath wasn't just the killer's endgame, it was mine too. The anger I'd buried, the rage that fueled every sleepless night. "Elias!" Ryan's voice snapped me back, his flashlight cutting through the dark as he and the TAC team closed in. "You okay? We lost you for a second." "He was here," I said, pointing to the shard. "Gone now. Left this." Ryan's jaw tightened as he bagged the shard. "This guy's a ghost. How the hell does he keep slipping us?" "He knows our moves," I said. "Knew we'd set a trap. He's not just a step ahead. He's writing the damn script." We swept the lot, but it was a lost cause. The rain had erased any tracks, and the cameras we'd set up caught nothing but static and shadows. Back at the precinct, the evidence board was a grim monument. 6 bodies, 6 shards, 6 sins. I tacked the new shard up, its blank surface a silent accusation. Ryan was on his laptop, pulling Kane's last knowns, but his frustration was palpable, his optimism long gone.
"Got a hit," he said finally. "Kane was spotted near the Bronx last week buying burner phones from a dealer we busted last year. Matches the pattern of the calls you've been getting." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the killer's words. "What's left of you?" I pulled the Polaroid from my pocket, staring at my younger self, cocky, unscarred, a man who still believed he could save something. Now I was a shadow of him, clinging to a badge that felt like a curse. The killer saw it, reflected it back in every mirror, every murder. Wrath was next, and I had a sinking feeling it wasn't just about the victim, it was about me. Then the call came in. Another body, this one in an abandoned tenement just blocks from the lot. We raced over, the rain picking up again, pounding the streets like a drum roll. Sound, sirens wailing, tires hissing on wet pavement. The tenement was a crumbling husk, its walls tagged with graffiti, its air thick with mold and ash. The victim was male, mid-30s, burned alive in the basement, his body curled into a fetal position, a mirror shard clutched in his charred hand. The inscription read, "Wrath's fire consumes the soul that rages." The seventh sin, the final piece. The victim was a nobody, a lowlife named Eddie Ruiz, a street brawler with a rap sheet for assault, known for his temper and a side gig as a mob enforcer. Another double life, another mask burned away. I stood over the body, the smell of ash and death clogging my throat. The TAC team swept the building, but I knew he was gone. The mirror had struck and vanished, leaving me to choke on the fumes of his game. Ryan was beside me, his face pale, his hands shaking as he bagged the shard. "This is it, isn't it? The last one. What's he building to?" I didn't answer. My eyes were on the mirror, my reflection fractured, distorted by the cracks. The killer wasn't done, not by a long shot. Wrath wasn't just Eddie's sin, it was mine. The anger I'd carried since Voss, the rage that drove me to keep chasing, keep fighting, even as it burned me out. The killer knew it, saw it, and was betting I'd break before I caught him. We headed back to the precinct, the city of blur of rain and neon. Sound, rain hammering the windshield, a low rumble of thunder. The trap had failed, but the killer was close. I could feel him, a shadow mirroring every step I took. Kane or not, he was leading me to a reckoning, and I wasn't sure I'd survive it. All I knew was that the final fire was coming, and I was running out of time to face the man in the mirror.
Chapter 10, Breaking Point. The rain had returned with a vengeance, hammering the city like a judgment as we sped toward Lower Manhattan. It was nearing 4 in the morning, the streets a blur of wet asphalt and flickering neon, the air thick with the weight of an approaching storm. My knee was a constant burn, my headache a vice grip, and the whiskey bottle in my desk drawer felt like the only friend I had left. The call had come 30 minutes ago, a tip from a CI in Vice, whispering about a big move planned at a charity gala in a Wall Street skyscraper. The mirror had struck 7 times. Gluttony, lust, sloth, greed, envy, pride, wrath. Each murder a mirror reflecting the city's rot and my own. Now he was building to something bigger, a massacre, and I was running out of time to stop it. Ryan was in the passenger seat, his face tight, his hands clenched around his phone. The trap in the Bronx had been a bust, the killer slipping through our fingers like smoke, leaving only a mirror shard and a taunt. Daniel Kane, my old partner, was still our prime suspect, his shadow haunting every crime scene, every call. But doubt gnawed at me. Kane was a blunt instrument, not this surgical phantom weaving Dante's sins into a deadly tapestry. Whoever the mirror was, he was close, watching me, and tonight felt like the endgame. The gala was at 1 Penn 1, a glass tower that gleamed like a blade against the stormy sky. It was a high-profile event packed with the city's elite, politicians, CEOs, philanthropists, all pretending to care about some inner-city youth fund while sipping champagne. The perfect stage for the Mirror's finale, a public slaughter, a spectacle to expose the city's hypocrisy. We pulled up to the building, flashing our badges to bypass the security cordon.
The lobby was a circus of uniforms and suits, the air buzzing with tension. Intel says the gala's on the 50th floor. Security's tight, but the CI mentioned a service entrance, unmonitored. If he's hitting tonight, that's his way in.
I nodded, my pulse pounding. We split up. You take the main floor, check the crowd, look for anyone out of place. I'll hit the service entrance. If he's here, we don't let him walk. Ryan hesitated, his eyes searching mine. You sure you're good, Elias? You're looking rough. I forced a smirk, ignoring the truth in his words. Worry about yourself, kid. I've been rough since before you were born. He didn't laugh, just nodded and headed for the elevators. I limped toward the service entrance, a narrow hallway tucked behind the lobby, its walls scuffed and dim. My flashlight swept the shadows, catching glints of metal, pipes, a fire extinguisher, a locked door. My Glock was heavy in my hand, my senses screaming. The mirror had been one step ahead every time, but tonight I was betting on his arrogance. He'd want me to see this, to be there when he lit the final fire. The service entrance led to a stairwell, its concrete steps slick with damp. I climbed, my knee protesting with every step, the air growing colder as I ascended. At the 50th floor, the door was ajar, a faint glow spilling through the crack. I eased it open, gun raised, and stepped into a maintenance corridor. The gala's music drifted faintly, strings, laughter, the clink of glasses. But closer was another sound, a low rhythmic scrape, like metal on stone. I followed the sound, my flashlight cutting through the dark. The corridor opened into a utility room, cluttered with HVAC units and electrical panels. And there, in the center, was a figure, tall, lean, hooded, crouched over a device that looked like a homemade incendiary, wires and canisters glinting under my beam. My heart stopped. This was it, the massacre, the final fire. "Freeze!" I barked, my gun trained on him. "NYPD, hands up, now!" The figure froze, then slowly turned, his face obscured by the hood. A low chuckle, familiar and chilling, echoed in the small room. "You're late, Elias. Always chasing, never catching." "Step away from the device," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. "It's over." "Is it?" he said, tilting his head. A glint of metal flashed in his hand, a mirror shard, its edge catching the light. "You still don't see, do you? The city's burning, and you're part of the flames." He moved faster than I expected, lunging toward me with the shard raised. I fired, the shot deafening in the confined space, but he was already diving behind an HVAC unit. I ducked, pain shooting through my knee as I hit the ground. The device was still there, its timer blinking red, 3 minutes and counting. "Ryan," I shouted into my comms, "utility room, 50th floor, bomb, move now!" I scrambled to my feet, chasing the figure as he darted through a side door. The corridor twisted into a maze of pipes and shadows, my flashlight bouncing wildly. I caught a glimpse of him, hooded, moving like a predator, slipping through a service hatch. I followed, my breath ragged, my gun raised. The gala was just beyond the walls, oblivious to the chaos unfolding. The hatch led to a rooftop access, the rain pounding down, the city sprawling below like a sea of lights. The figure stood at the edge, his silhouette stark against the stormy sky. He turned, and for a moment I swore I saw Kane's face, hard, angular, the same cold eyes I'd trusted a decade ago. But it was gone, swallowed by the hood and the rain. "You can't stop it, Elias," he called through the shot. "Wrath consumes us all. Look in the mirror." He tossed something at me, a mirror shard glinting as it fell. I caught it instinctively, my reflection staring back, fractured and blood-streaked. Then he was gone, vanishing over the edge, a shadow swallowed by the night. I ran to the ledge, but there was nothing, just rain and darkness, the city indifferent below. "Elias,"
Ryan's voice crackled through the comms. "Bomb squad's on the device. It's disarmed. Where are you?" "Rooftop," I gasped, my chest heaving. "He's gone." I stood there, the shard in my hand, the inscription barely visible in the rain. "Wrath's fire is yours." My reflection looked back, a man broken by his own rage, the anger I'd carried since Voss, since the kid, since Cain's betrayal. The gala was safe, but the victory felt hollow. The mirror had slipped away again, leaving me to face the truth he'd carved into every murder. I was as much a part of this as he was.
Back at the precinct, the evidence board was a testament to my failure. 7 bodies, 7 shards, 7 sins. The bomb had been a fake-out, a distraction to draw me out, to make me chase my own tail. Ryan was quiet, his face pale, the weight of the night settling into him. "We were close," he said, his voice flat. "Why didn't he finish it?" "Because it's not about the kill," I said, staring at the shard. "It's about me. He wants me to break." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, my voice a growl. "Crowe." "You're still standing, Elias," the voice said, smooth and mocking. "But the fire's not out. The final act's coming. Be ready." The line went dead. I gripped the shard, its edge biting into my palm. The city hummed outside, its lights flickering through the rain. Sound of rain hammering the windows, a low, relentless roar. The mirror was out there, waiting, and I was running out of time to face him and the man he'd forced me to see in the mirror.
Chapter 11. Fire against fire. The rain was a torrent now, a biblical deluge that turned the Brooklyn Bridge into a slick, glistening spine across the East River. It was just past midnight, the city's pulse pounding beneath the storm, its lights fractured in the water below like a shattered mirror. My knee was a white-hot agony, my headache a relentless hammer, and the weight of 30 years on the force felt like it would crush me. The mirror had slipped through my fingers again. 7 bodies, 7 sins, 7 shards. And now he was calling me to the bridge, his final stage, where the game would end. The gala trap had been a feint, a distraction to pull me into his rhythm, and I'd fallen for it. The bomb was a dud, but the message was clear. Wrath wasn't just Eddie Ruiz's sin, it was mine. The rage that had burned in me since Voss, since the kid's death, since Cain's betrayal. Daniel Cain, my old partner, my shadow, was still our best lead. But the doubt lingered. Was he the mirror? Or was I chasing a ghost conjured by my own guilt? The Polaroid from Lena's apartment was in my pocket, my younger self a reminder of the man I'd lost, and the latest mirror shard, its inscription, "Wrath's fire is yours," cut deeper than any blade. Ryan was beside me, his face grim, his usual spark buried under the weight of the chase. We'd tracked the killer's last call to a burner phone pinging off a tower near the bridge. The TAC team was on standby, positioned at both ends, but I'd insisted on going in alone. This was personal, a duel the mirror had been building to since Rossi's charred corpse in Hell Kitchen. Ryan hadn't argued, just handed me a comms unit and a look that said I knew I was fraying. I walked the pedestrian path, my flashlight cutting through the rain, the bridge's cables humming like a taut string. The city sprawled on either side, Manhattan's towers gleaming, Brooklyn's lights a distant promise. My Glock was heavy in my hand, my coat soaked through, the cold seeping into my bones. I felt him before I saw him, a presence, a shadow at the edge of my vision, moving between the cables like a specter.
"Elias," his voice came, not through the phone but from the darkness ahead, distorted but human, carrying over the storm. "You came. I knew you would." I raised my gun, flashlight sweeping the path. "Show yourself," I called, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "No more games." He stepped into the light, a tall figure in a hooded coat, his face obscured, but his posture familiar. Too familiar. Cain. Or was it? The rain blurred his features, but his eyes glinted, sharp and cold, like the mirror shards he'd left behind.
He held one now, turning it in his hand, its surface catching the city's glow. "You still don't see," he said, his voice low, mocking. "The mirrors, the sins, the fire, it's all you, Elias. Your wrath, your descent. You've been burning this city down for years, chasing ghosts you can't outrun." "Shut up," I snapped, stepping closer, my gun trained on his chest. "Daniel Kane, it's you, isn't it? You turned on me, on the force, on everything." He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Kane, you're still chasing shadows, old man. I'm not your partner, I'm your reflection." He pulled back the hood, and my breath caught. Not Kane. A stranger, lean, sharp-featured, with eyes that burned with something like reverence. "You don't remember me, do you? The kid's brother, the one you let die." My blood ran cold. The kid, Maria, caught in Voss's final act, a bystander I couldn't save. Her brother. I'd never known his name, never followed up, too buried in my own guilt to face the fallout. "You're him," I said, my voice cracking. "You've been doing this. For her?"
"For her. For you," he said, stepping closer, the shard glinting in his hand. "You and Voss, two sides of the same coin. He killed her, but you let it happen. I studied you, Elias, your cases, your failures. The mirrors show the truth, your truth. Wrath's fire is yours." I tightened my grip on the gun, my mind reeling. Not Kane. A nobody, a ghost from my past, turned into a monster by grief and obsession. The mirrors, the sins, the taunts, they were his way of forcing me to face my failure, to burn in the same fire he'd carried for a decade. Thunder rolling, a low, angry rumble that shook the bridge. "Put it down," I said, my voice low. "It ends here." "Does it?" he said, smiling. "You think catching me saves you? The city's rotting, Elias. You're part of it. Look in the mirror." He lunged, the shard flashing like a blade. I fired, the shot splitting the night, but he was fast, diving behind a cable. The bullet sparked off metal, and he was on me, the shard slashing at my arm. Pain flared hot and sharp, blood mixing with the rain. I swung my flashlight, catching him in the jaw, and he staggered back, dropping the shard. It shattered on the pavement, my reflection splintering into 1,000 pieces. We grappled, his strength fueled by rage, mine by desperation. The bridge swayed under us, the rain a blinding curtain. I pinned him against a cable, my gun pressed to his temple. "Why me?" I growled. "Why this?" "Because you're the fire," he hissed, his eyes wild. "You burn, and you don't even see it. Maria's gone, but you're still here, playing hero. I wanted you to feel it." I hesitated, his words cutting deeper than the shard. Maria's face flashed in my mind. Her eyes, her scream, the blood, my failure, my wrath. I wanted to pull the trigger, to end it, but my hand shook. He saw it, smiled, and twisted free, shoving me back. I stumbled, my knee buckling, and he ran, vanishing into the storm.
Were the fire he'd been stoking, and I was burning in it. Back at the precinct, I bandaged my arm, the pain a dull counterpoint to the ache in my chest. The evidence board stared back. 7 bodies, 7 sins, 7 mirrors. The final act was over, but it didn't feel like a victory. The mirror was still out there, a shadow of my past, and I was still here, chained to a badge that felt like a curse. I pulled the Polaroid from my pocket, my younger self staring out, unscarred, unbroken. I wasn't that man anymore. The mirror had shown me who I was, a cop consumed by his own fire, too stubborn to let go, too broken to win. The rain outside pounded the windows, a relentless dirge, and I wondered if I'd ever outrun the flames.